Sergeant Taehyun Kim checked his oxygen meter one more time. The small device on his wrist glowed blue in the dark space of the dropship. Around him, 5 other soldiers sat in silence. Each one wore the black armor of the Terran Special Forces. 2 minutes to drop, said the pilot's voice in their helmets. Taehyun nodded even though no one could see him. After 5 years fighting in the Terran-Kailosian War, he had done this many times before. The mission was simple. Get in, steal the enemy's battle plans, and get out. The hard part was that they were going into a Kailosian outpost, deep in enemy space. Remember, Taehyun said to his team, we go in quiet. No shooting unless we have to. Yes, Sergeant, they all said at once. The ship slowed down. Taehyun felt his stomach drop as the gravity changed. The red light above the door turned green. Go, 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 Taehyun ordered. The door opened, and the 6 soldiers jumped out. They floated through space for just a few seconds before landing on the side of a large Kailosian ship. Their magnetic boots kept them from floating away. Taehyun moved quickly to a small door on the ship's side. He took out a small device and placed it on the door's control panel. Hacking the door now, he whispered into his helmet radio. The device blinked 3 times, then the door slid open. We're in. Once inside, the soldiers moved through the dark hallways of the ship. The purple lights of the Kailosian vessel made their black armor stand out less. Taehyun checked the map on his wrist computer. Something wasn't right. This doesn't match our intel, he whispered. This isn't an outpost. The hallways are too big, the ceilings too high. Then what is it? Asked Jin, one of his team members. Before Taehyun could answer, they heard voices coming from around the corner. Not the rough, military voices of Kailosian soldiers, but softer ones. The team quickly hid behind a large pillar. A group of Kailosians walked by. They wore bright colors and jewels, not military uniforms. Taehyun held his breath. These were not soldiers. They were civilians, maybe even important ones. We're on the wrong ship, Taehyun whispered when the group passed. This looks like a royal transport. Royal? Jin asked, his voice shaking a little. You mean we just broke into a ship with Kailosian royalty on it? That's exactly what I mean, Taehyun said. We need to get out now. The mission is. An alarm suddenly blared through the ship. Red lights flashed in the hallway. They know we're here, Taehyun said. New plan. We fight our way to the escape pods. The team moved quickly through the hallways, but soon they met resistance. Kailosian guards appeared at both ends of the hallway, their red skin and tall frames making them easy to spot. They fired their energy weapons at the human soldiers. Take cover, Taehyun shouted. The fight was short but intense. The humans managed to take down several guards, but they were outnumbered. Soon, they were surrounded. Sergeant, what do we do? Jin asked, his voice tense. Taehyun looked around. There was no way all 6 of them could escape now. But maybe. Listen to me, he said to his team. When I make my move, run for the exit we came in through. The ship's defenses will focus on me. But Sergeant, that's an order, Taehyun said firmly. Before anyone could argue, Taehyun jumped out from behind cover and fired his weapon at the ceiling. A shower of sparks fell down, distracting the Kailosian guards. At the same time, he threw a small device that created a bright flash of light. Now, go, he shouted to his team. As his team made a run for it, Taehyun fired his weapon again and again, making sure all attention was on him. He saw his team disappear around a corner. Good. They would make it out. Then something hard hit Taehyun in the back. He fell to the floor, his weapon sliding away. The last thing he saw before blacking out was a circle of Kailosian guards standing over him. When Taehyun woke up, he was in a small cell. His armor was gone, and he wore only the black undersuit. He sat up slowly, feeling pain in his back where the stun blast had hit him. The cell was nicer than he expected. The bed was soft, and there was even a small window showing the stars outside. This was not a normal prison cell. The door to the cell suddenly opened. Taehyun stood up quickly, ready to fight if needed. A Kailosian female walked in. She was different from the soldiers Taehyun had fought before. Her red skin was lighter, almost pink. She wore a long dress with gold patterns, and a small crown sat on her head between two small horns. A princess. Taehyun thought. He had never seen Kailosian royalty before. "You are awake," she said in perfect English, surprising Taehyun. Most Kailosians didn't bother learning human languages. "Where am I?" Taehyun asked. "You are on the royal transport ship of the Kailosian Empire," she said. "I am Princess Juu." Taehyun stood straighter. He had broken into the ship of a Kailosian princess. That was bad. "What happened to my team?" he asked. "They escaped," Princess Juu said. "You made sure of that, didn't you? You stayed behind so they could get away." Taehyun said nothing. He wouldn't give her any information. "That was interesting," the princess continued. "Kailosian soldiers would not do that. They would save themselves first." "We're not Kailosians," Taehyun said. "No, you are not," she agreed. "You are human. Sergeant Taehyun Kim of the Terran Defense Force, according to your armor." Taehyun was surprised she had learned his name. "What happens now? Am I a prisoner of war?" Princess Juu walked closer to him. She was tall, like all Kailosians, but not as tall as the males of her species. She studied his face with curiosity. "You should be executed," she said calmly. "That is what happens to spies." Taehyun took a deep breath. He had always known this might happen. "But I am curious," the princess continued. "Why did you sacrifice yourself for your team?" "They say humans are selfish creatures who only care about themselves." "Who says that?" Taehyun asked. "My father, the emperor, all our teachers, everyone." Taehyun laughed without humor. "Your people say a lot of things about humans that aren't true, just like we probably say things about you that aren't true." Princess Juu tilted her head. "Like what?" "Like you're all warmongers who attacked us for no reason." The princess's eyes widened. "But you attacked us. You fired on our peaceful ships." Taehyun shook his head. "That's not what happened. Your ships entered our space without permission and wouldn't leave when asked." Princess Juu looked confused. That's not what I was told." For a moment, they just looked at each other. Taehyun realized something important was happening. This princess had been told lies about humans, just as he had probably been told lies about Kailosians. "I will speak with you again," Princess Juu said suddenly. She turned to leave, then stopped. "You will not be executed. At least not yet." After she left, Taehyun sat back down on the bed. His situation was dangerous, but something about his conversation with the princess gave him hope. Maybe there was more to this war than either side knew. Over the next few days, Princess Juu visited him often. They talked about their worlds, their customs, their lives before the war. Taehyun learned that Kailosian females held more power than males, which was very different from old Earth customs. The princess learned that humans valued personal freedom above almost everything else. "Is it true that humans have many different countries?" she asked during one visit. "Yes, though now we're united as the Terran Alliance," Taehyun explained. "Each country still has its own culture and traditions." "That sounds chaotic," Princess Juu said. "It can be. But it's also beautiful. Different ideas, different foods, different ways of living, all on one planet. The Kailosian Empire has only one way," she said quietly. "The Emperor's way." Something in her voice made Taehyun think she didn't fully agree with this system. He took a chance. "Princess, why did this war really start?" She looked at him for a long time before answering. "I don't know anymore. I thought I did, but now." She stood up suddenly. "I need to check something. I will return." When she came back hours later, her face was serious. I found the original reports from our first contact with humans, she said. They were not what I was told. It seems my father may have changed some facts. Taehyun nodded slowly. War is often built on lies. What if, Princess Ju said carefully, what if there was a way to end this war? Would you help me? Taehyun stood up and looked directly into her alien eyes. To save lives on both sides. Yes, I would. Princess Ju smiled for the first time since he had met her. Good, because we are going to the Imperial Palace, and I'm taking you with me. The royal transport ship landed at the Imperial Palace 3 days later. Taehyun had never seen anything like it. The palace was built on top of a mountain, with tall spires that reached toward the purple sky. The buildings were made of a strange metal that shimmered in the light of 2 suns. Princess Ju had given Taehyun new clothes to wear. They were Kailosian style, but made to fit his human body. The fabric was light and strong, colored dark blue with gold trim. Remember, Princess Ju said as they prepared to leave the ship, you are my personal study subject. Say nothing unless I ask you to speak. Keep your eyes down when my father is present. What if he orders my execution anyway? Taehyun asked. He won't, she said, but didn't sound completely sure. The law says I can claim 1 prize from any royal journey. I am claiming you. Taehyun didn't like being called a prize, but he knew this was his only chance to stay alive. And maybe, just maybe, to help end this war. When they walked off the ship, a large group was waiting for them. Kailosian guards stood in perfect lines, their armor shining in the sunlight. In the center stood a tall male Kailosian wearing a large crown and gold armor. Emperor Doyun. My daughter returns, the emperor said in the Kailosian language. Taehyun couldn't understand the words, but the tone was cold. Princess Ju bowed. Father, I bring news from the outer systems, and a specimen for study. The emperor's eyes moved to Taehyun. They were yellow with black slits, like a cat's eyes. A human. You bring a human to the Imperial Palace. He was captured on our ship, Princess Ju explained. I have been studying him. Humans are not what we thought they were. Another Kailosian stepped forward. He wore military armor with many badges. Your Highness, this is dangerous. The human should be executed immediately. General Minsu. Princess Ju said calmly, I claim this human as my royal prize from the journey. Do you question my right? The general looked angry but stepped back. No, Your Highness. The emperor studied Taehyun for a long moment. Very well. But he is your responsibility. If he causes any trouble, you both will face punishment. Taehyun kept his eyes down, just as Princess Ju had told him to. Inside, his heart was racing. He had just been brought into the heart of the enemy empire, and only the word of a princess he barely knew was keeping him alive. Princess Ju gave Taehyun a small room connected to her royal chambers. It was much nicer than the cell on the ship, with a large bed, a window overlooking the city below the palace, and even a small garden in one corner. These will be your quarters, she explained. You cannot leave without me or a royal guard, but you will be treated well. Why are you doing this? Taehyun asked. Why risk your father's anger to keep me alive? Princess Ju sat down on a bench in the garden. Because I need to know the truth. I need to know if everything I've been taught about humans is wrong. And if it is, what then? Then, she said, we find a way to stop this war. In the days that followed, Princess Ju taught Taehyun about Kailosian culture. He learned their customs, their history, and even some of their language. In return, he told her about Earth and the human colonies. So humans live on many planets now, she asked during one of their lessons. 5 major colony worlds, Taehyun explained. The biggest is Proxima Centauri b. Almost 10 million people live there. Princess Ju seemed troubled by this information. She made notes on her tablet, but said nothing more about it. One day, she took Taehyun to the palace library. It was a huge room filled with glowing crystal tablets instead of books. Each crystal contained thousands of Kailosian texts. "There is something I want to show you," she said, leading him to a special section at the back of the library. She took a small red crystal from a locked case and placed it on a reading stand. The crystal projected images in the air above it. The images showed two species meeting in space. "This is the Ancient's prophecy," Princess Juwu explained. "It tells of a time when the Kailosian people will meet another species. Together, the two species will bring peace to the galaxy." Taehyun looked at the images with interest. "Your people believe in this prophecy." "Most have forgotten it," she said, "or choose to ignore it. My father certainly has. But my mother believed in it. She taught me to look for signs." "And do you think humans might be this other species?" Princess Juwu looked at him carefully. "The prophecy says the other species will value sacrifice above power and wisdom above strength. When you stayed behind to save your team, it made me wonder." Before Taehyun could respond, they heard footsteps approaching. Princess Juwu quickly put the crystal away. General Minsu appeared from behind a bookshelf. "Princess, the Emperor requires your presence. Alone." Princess Juwu nodded. "Take Sergeant Kim back to his quarters." As General Minsu led Taehyun away, the human could feel the Kailosian's hatred. The general said nothing until they reached Taehyun's room. "I don't know what game you're playing, human," General Minsu said in rough English, "but it won't work. No human will ever be welcome in the Imperial Palace." "I'm not playing any game," Taehyun replied calmly. "I'm just trying to survive." "For now," the general said with a threatening tone. Then he left, locking the door behind him. Taehyun went to the window and looked out at the Kailosian city below. Somewhere out there, beyond this planet, the war was still raging. His people were fighting and dying. He needed to find a way to help them. Later that night, Princess Juwu returned. Her face was tense. "What happened?" Taehyun asked. "My father is planning a major attack," she said quietly, as if afraid someone might hear. "He wants to strike your colony on Proxima Centauri b." Taehyun felt his blood run cold. "When?" "In 1 month. He's gathering the entire Imperial fleet." She looked at Taehyun with sad eyes. "Millions of your people will die." Taehyun turned away, his mind racing. He had to warn Earth somehow. "There is more," Princess Juwu said. "My father is hosting a royal celebration in 3 days. All the noble families will attend. He wants to show you off as a captured enemy." "Like an animal in a zoo," Taehyun said bitterly. "Yes. I'm sorry." Princess Juwu touched his arm gently. "But this might also be an opportunity. Many influential Kailosians will be there, including Ambassador Yunji. She has always favored peace." Taehyun thought for a moment. "Can you get me a communication device? Something I can use to send a message to my people?" Princess Juwu hesitated. "That would be treason against my father." "Your father is planning to kill millions of innocent civilians," Taehyun reminded her. "Is that the kind of leader you want to be loyal to?" She was quiet for a long time. "There is a way," she finally said, "but it's risky. The royal celebration will be broadcast across the empire. If you can get access to the broadcast system, I could hide a message in the transmission." Taehyun finished her thought. "But I'll need help." "I know someone who works in the communication center," Princess Juwu said. "But Taehyun, if we're caught." "I know. We'll both be executed." He looked directly into her alien eyes. "But we have to try." For the next 2 days, they prepared their plan. Princess Juwu brought Taehyun parts from different devices, which he used to build a small transmitter. She also taught him more about Kailosian customs, especially those for the royal celebration. "In our culture, females choose their mates," she explained. "Males must prove their worth through shows of strength, wisdom, and loyalty." "So Kailosian women propose to men?" Taehyun asked, surprised. "Yes, and once a royal female makes her choice, not even the emperor can interfere." Princess Juwu looked away quickly. It's just cultural information you should know. On the night before the celebration, as Taehyun was finalizing the transmitter, Princess Juwoo brought a visitor to his room. "This is Lieutenant Jai Park," Princess Juwoo said. "She was captured 3 days ago trying to scout the palace defenses." Taehyun stood up in shock. The woman was clearly human, wearing torn Terran military clothes. "Sergeant Kim," Lieutenant Park said in disbelief. "Everyone thinks you're dead." "Lieutenant," Taehyun said, saluting her. "What are you doing here?" "Trying to rescue you," she said. "We tracked the Kailosian royal ship. A team of 10 was sent in. But I'm the only one who made it inside before they caught us." Taehyun looked at Princess Juwoo. "You didn't tell me about this." "I just found out today," the princess said. "I had her brought here instead of the prison cells." Lieutenant Park looked suspicious. "Why would you help us?" Princess Juwoo explained about the planned attack on Proxima Centauri and their plan to send a warning. "If we can warn Earth," Taehyun added, "they can evacuate the colony or prepare defenses." Lieutenant Park nodded slowly. "I have a better idea. My team's ship is still hidden in the mountains outside the city. If we can reach it, we can send a direct message to Fleet Command." Taehyun felt hope for the first time in weeks. "Then we have to try." After the royal celebration tomorrow, as they continued planning late into the night, Taehyun noticed Princess Juwoo watching him with a strange expression. When he asked her what was wrong, she simply said, "I'm just thinking about choices and what I'm willing to sacrifice for peace." The alien princess pleads with the human soldier for his hand in marriage. Part 3. The proposal. The day of the royal celebration arrived. The imperial palace was filled with Kailosian nobles from across the empire. They wore bright clothes with jewels that sparkled in the light. Music played from strange instruments, and servants carried food and drinks that Taehyun had never seen before. Princess Juwoo came to Taehyun's room early that morning. She brought special clothes for him to wear. A formal human military uniform, but made with Kailosian materials. "My father wants you to look like a proper human soldier," she explained, "so everyone can see what our enemy looks like." Taehyun put on the uniform. It fit him perfectly. "Where is Lieutenant Park?" "Hidden in a servant's quarters. She will help us when it's time." Princess Juwoo looked worried. "Taehyun, there's something else. My cousin, Prince Jaehyun, will be at the celebration. He has wanted to marry me for years." "Is that common? Cousins marrying?" "Among royalty, yes. To keep the bloodline pure." She made a face that showed she didn't like this idea. "He is jealous that I spend so much time with you. Be careful around him." Taehyun nodded. "I will. Do you have the transmitter?" Princess Juwoo pulled a small device from her pocket. It was the one Taehyun had built, now hidden inside a Kailosian jewelry box. "Good," Taehyun said. "Remember, when I give the signal, you need to be near the main broadcast controls." "I know." She touched his arm briefly. "Be safe." The celebration was held in the grand hall of the palace. Hundreds of Kailosians filled the room, talking and laughing. Taehyun stood next to Princess Juwoo on a raised platform, trying not to show how nervous he felt. Emperor Dohyun sat on a large throne nearby, watching everything with his yellow eyes. Many Kailosians came to look at Taehyun. Some were curious, others showed disgust or hate. He kept his face calm, remembering his military training for being captured by the enemy. "So this is the human you've been studying," said a male voice. Taehyun turned to see a Kailosian male walking toward them. He was younger than the emperor but had the same yellow eyes. He wore royal clothes with many medals. "Prince Jaehyun," Princess Juwoo said coldly. "Yes, this is Sergeant Taehyun Kim of Earth." Prince Jaehyun walked around Taehyun, studying him like he was an animal in a zoo. "Smaller than I expected. Weaker too, I imagine." "Size isn't everything," Taehyun said before he could stop himself. The prince's eyes narrowed. "It speaks without permission. I gave him permission to speak freely, Princess Juwu said quickly. He is helping me understand human culture. Culture? Humans don't have culture. They're savages who live only to fight and destroy. Prince Jaehyun turned to Princess Juwu. Cousin, you waste your time with this creature. The Emperor has approved my request to discuss our marriage tonight. Princess Juwu's face showed no emotion, but Taehyun saw her hands tighten into fists. We will see, was all she said. After Prince Jaehyun left, a female Kailosian approached them. She wore simple but elegant clothes and had a kind face. Princess Juwu, she said with a bow. It's good to see you. Ambassador Yoonji. Princess Juwu said, sounding relieved. I'm glad you could come. Ambassador Yoonji looked at Taehyun with interest. So this is your human guest. Fascinating. I've met humans before, during peace talks years ago. There were peace talks? Taehyun asked, surprised. Yes, before the war started. I tried to prevent the fighting. But she looked sad. Other voices were stronger than mine. Princess Juwu glanced at a large clock on the wall. It's almost time, she whispered to Taehyun. I need to get to the broadcast room. As she started to leave, Emperor Dohyun's voice rang out across the hall. Princess Juwu, come here. Princess Juwu froze, then slowly walked to her father's throne. Taehyun watched, worried about their plan. My daughter, the Emperor said loudly so everyone could hear, Prince Jaehyun has asked for your hand in marriage. I have decided to approve this union. The crowd applauded. Prince Jaehyun smiled triumphantly. Princess Juwu stood very still. Father, I have not agreed to this match. The decision is made, Emperor Dohyun said firmly. The wedding will happen next month, after our great victory against the humans. Taehyun felt sick. Their time was running out. He needed to act now, even without Princess Juwu's help. He touched the small device hidden in his pocket. Just then, Prince Jaehyun approached him. Human, there's something strange about you. What are you hiding? Before Taehyun could answer, the prince grabbed his arm and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small metal object, not the transmitter, but a Terran military badge Taehyun had kept hidden. What is this? Prince Jaehyun demanded. Just a reminder of home, Taehyun said. Prince Jaehyun studied the badge, then his eyes widened. This isn't just a badge. There's technology inside. He turned to the crowd. The human is a spy. He has hidden technology. Guards rushed toward Taehyun. He looked desperately for Princess Juwu, but she was still at her father's throne. Search him, Prince Jaehyun ordered. The guards found the transmitter in Taehyun's other pocket. They'd brought it to the Emperor. What is this device? Emperor Dohyun demanded. Taehyun said nothing. He knew this was the end. It's a transmitter, Prince Jaehyun said. He was trying to send messages to other humans. He turned to Princess Juwu. Did you know about this, cousin? All eyes turned to Princess Juwu. Taehyun hoped she would deny everything. She could still save herself. But Princess Juwu stood tall. Yes, I knew. Because the transmitter was my idea. A shocked silence fell over the crowd. Explain yourself, Emperor Dohyun said in a dangerous voice. Princess Juwu walked to the center of the hall. Father, you plan to attack a human colony world with millions of innocent people. This war has gone on too long, based on lies and misunderstandings. Treason, Prince Jaehyun shouted. She's a traitor to our people. I am loyal to our people, Princess Juwu said firmly. But I have learned the truth about humans. They are not the monsters we were told they are. The ancient prophecy speaks of two species joining together. What if humans are that species? Emperor Dohyun stood from his throne, his face dark with anger. You have been corrupted by this human. Guards, take them both to the prison cells. As guards moved to arrest them, Ambassador Yoonji stepped forward. Your Majesty, wait. The princess has the right to speak. Our laws protect that right, even for those accused of crimes. The emperor hesitated, then nodded once. "Speak then, daughter, but choose your words carefully." Princess Jiwu looked at Taehyun, then back to her father. "I have studied this human for weeks now. He knows our laws, our customs, our history. Test him if you don't believe me." "Very well," Emperor Dohyun said. "Human, what is the Kailosian Code of Honor?" Taehyun took a deep breath. "The 5 virtues: strength in battle, truth in speech, loyalty to family, respect for ancestors, and protection of the weak." The emperor looked surprised. He asked more questions about Kailosian history and customs. Taehyun answered them all correctly, thanks to Princess Jiwu's teachings. "He has memorized our ways," Emperor Dohyun admitted. "But that doesn't change what he is, or what you've done. There is one more thing," Princess Jiwu said. Her voice was strong now, with no hint of fear. "By Kailosian royal law, I claim the right of Koltar." The crowd gasped. Even the emperor looked shocked. "The right of Koltar has not been used in 3 generations," he said. "You cannot possibly mean to use it now." "I do," Princess Jiwu said. Taehyun didn't know what Koltar meant, but he could tell it was important. Princess Jiwu turned to face Taehyun. She walked slowly toward him, then knelt on one knee before him. The entire hall went silent. "Sergeant Taehyun Kim of Earth," she said in a clear voice. "I, Princess Jiwu of the Kailosian Empire, ask for your hand in marriage. I offer my loyalty, my protection, and my royal status. Do you accept?" Taehyun stared at her in shock. The room erupted in shouts and cries of outrage. "Silence," Emperor Dohyun roared. When the room quieted, he looked at his daughter with cold eyes. "You would marry this human, rather than your own cousin, rather than someone of your own species?" "I would," Princess Jiwu said, still kneeling before Taehyun. "Because he has shown the virtues that we claim to value, and because our laws say I have this right." "This is an outrage," Prince Jaehyun shouted. "No royal has ever married an alien." "But it is her right," Ambassador Yoonji said. "The law of Koltar states that a royal female may choose any mate she deems worthy, and none may interfere. Not even the emperor." Emperor Dohyun's face showed rage, but also a hint of respect for his daughter's clever move. "The human has not answered," he pointed out. All eyes turned to Taehyun. He looked at Princess Jiwu, trying to understand what was happening. Was this just a trick to save his life, or did she have another plan? Then he realized. If he married the princess, he would become part of the royal family. He would have protection under Kailosian law. And perhaps more importantly, he would have a voice, a way to push for peace. "Princess Jiwu," Taehyun said, choosing his words carefully, "I am honored by your proposal, but I must know, do you truly believe our 2 species can find peace?" "I do," she said. "Together, we can end this war." Taehyun nodded slowly. "Then I accept." The hall erupted in chaos again, but above the noise, Emperor Dohyun's voice cut through. "The human has accepted, but he must first prove his worth, as our laws demand. 3 trials will be set. If he fails even one, both he and my daughter will face punishment for treason." Princess Jiwu stood and faced her father. "We accept your terms, father." Taehyun looked at Princess Jiwu and saw determination in her eyes. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The news spread quickly across the Kailosian Empire. A human soldier had accepted a royal marriage proposal from Princess Jiwu. Many were angry, others were curious, but everyone wanted to see the 3 trials. The trials would take place in the royal arena, a large round building in the center of the capital city. Thousands of Kailosians came to watch. The emperor sat on a special throne high above the arena floor. Princess Jiwu sat nearby, not allowed to help Taehyun in any way. Taehyun stood in the middle of the arena, wearing simple clothes. He felt small compared to the tall Kailosians around him, but he stood straight and proud, showing no fear. "Sergeant Taehyun Kim of Earth, Emperor Doyun's voice boomed across the arena. "You have accepted my daughter's proposal of marriage. But first, you must prove your worth through 3 trials. These trials will test the virtues we Kailosians value most: intelligence, strength, and compassion." Taehyun nodded, ready to begin. "The first trial is the trial of intelligence," the emperor announced. "You must solve the puzzle of the ancients." Guards brought out a large crystal cube. It had many small pieces that moved and changed color. Taehyun had seen Princess Juwoo play with a smaller version. It was like a complex 3D puzzle. "You have 1 hour," the emperor said. Taehyun approached the cube. It was taller than him, and much more complicated than the one Princess Juwoo had shown him. He touched one of the pieces, and it changed from blue to green. He touched another, and part of the cube rotated. The crowd watched in silence as Taehyun worked on the puzzle. The cube changed colors and shapes as he touched different parts. Sometimes he would step back, thinking, then move forward to touch a specific piece. After 45 minutes, Taehyun had figured out the pattern. The cube wasn't just a puzzle. It was a star map of the Kailosian Empire. He arranged the pieces to show the correct positions of the stars and planets. As he placed the last piece, the entire cube glowed with a bright light. The crowd gasped. "He has completed the trial of intelligence," announced a Kailosian official. Princess Juwoo smiled, but quickly hid her joy. Emperor Doyun looked surprised but gave a small nod of approval. "The second trial is the trial of strength," the emperor said. "You must defeat a Kailosian warrior in combat." A side door opened, and Prince Jaehyun walked into the arena. He wore battle armor and carried a staff weapon. He smiled at Taehyun with cold eyes. "Your opponent will be Prince Jaehyun," the emperor announced. Taehyun was given a similar staff weapon. It was heavy in his hands, made for someone much taller and stronger than a human. "Begin," shouted the emperor. Prince Jaehyun attacked immediately, swinging his staff with great force. Taehyun barely managed to block it. The impact sent pain through his arms. "You cannot win, human," Prince Jaehyun said quietly. "My species is naturally stronger than yours." Taehyun knew this was true. Kailosians were taller and had more muscle mass than humans, but humans had their own advantages. "Strength isn't just about muscles," Taehyun replied. He changed his strategy. Instead of trying to match Prince Jaehyun's power, he focused on speed and balance. He dodged attacks rather than blocking them. He used the prince's momentum against him, just as he had been taught in Terran military training. Prince Jaehyun grew frustrated. His attacks became wilder, less controlled. Taehyun saw an opening and struck quickly, hitting the prince's leg. Prince Jaehyun stumbled but didn't fall. The fight continued for many minutes. Taehyun was tiring, but so was Prince Jaehyun. Then the prince charged forward with all his strength. Taehyun stepped aside at the last moment and stuck out his foot. Prince Jaehyun tripped and fell hard to the ground. Before he could get up, Taehyun had the end of his staff at the prince's throat. The crowd was silent, then erupted in a mix of cheers and angry shouts. "The human has won the trial of strength," the official announced. Prince Jaehyun got up, his face dark with anger and shame. He left the arena without a word. Emperor Doyun frowned. He had not expected the human to win both trials. "The final trial is the trial of compassion," he said. "This is perhaps the most important virtue of all." An old Kailosian walked into the arena. Her skin was pale red, almost pink, and she wore simple robes. She carried a crystal staff that glowed with a soft light. "Elder Suman will oversee this trial," the emperor said. Elder Suman walked to the center of the arena where Taehyun stood. "Human," she said in a gentle voice, "for this trial, you must make a choice." She waved her staff, and 2 large cages appeared on opposite sides of the arena. In one cage was Lieutenant Jai Park, looking bruised and tired. In the other cage was Prince Jaehyun, also looking injured. "You may free one prisoner," Elder Suman explained. Your fellow human, or your Kailosian rival. The other will remain imprisoned for 1 full year. The crowd murmured. This was an unexpected twist. Taehyun looked at Lieutenant Park. She was a fellow soldier, his responsibility. She had risked her life to try to save him. Then he looked at Prince Jaehyun, who had tried to kill him just moments ago and had shown nothing but hatred toward humans. The choice seemed obvious, but something didn't feel right. Before I choose, Taehyun said, may I ask what happened to them? They fought each other. Elder Suman said. The human female was trying to reach a hidden ship to send a message to Earth. Prince Jaehyun caught her. They were both injured in the fight. Taehyun walked closer to Prince Jaehyun's cage. The prince glared at him. Come to gloat, human. He spat. No, Taehyun said. I came to ask why you hate humans so much. Prince Jaehyun's face showed surprise, then pain. My father was killed in the first battle against humans. I was told your kind attacked without warning or reason. Taehyun nodded slowly. My parents died when Kailosian ships bombed a human colony. I was told your kind attacked first. He paused. What if we were both told lies? He turned to Elder Suman. I've made my choice. The crowd leaned forward to hear. I choose to free them both, Taehyun said. Elder Suman raised her eyebrows. That is not one of the options. Then I will take Prince Jaehyun's place, Taehyun said. Free Lieutenant Park and the prince. I will serve the year in prison. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Princess Juwoo stood up from her seat, her face showing concern. You would sacrifice your freedom for both your friend and your enemy? Elder Suman asked. Yes, Taehyun said simply. Elder Suman turned to Emperor Dohyun. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Elder Suman raised her staff high. The human has passed the trial of compassion, she announced. The most difficult trial of all. Both cages opened. Lieutenant Park ran to Taehyun's side. Prince Jaehyun walked out slowly, looking confused. How is this possible? Prince Jaehyun asked. He chose both. He chose sacrifice, Elder Suman said. The greatest virtue of all. She turned to address the entire arena. The prophecy speaks of a species that values sacrifice above all else, a species that would put others before themselves. She pointed her staff at Taehyun. I believe we have found that species. Emperor Dohyun stood from his throne. The human has passed all 3 trials. By our law, he may marry my daughter. He didn't sound happy, but there was a hint of respect in his voice. Princess Juwoo rushed down to the arena floor. She took Taehyun's hands in hers. You did it, she said, smiling. Before Taehyun could respond, a loud alarm sounded throughout the city. Guards ran into the arena, looking panicked. Your Majesty, one guard shouted. Human ships have entered our space. A large fleet. The crowd began to panic. Emperor Dohyun raised his hands for silence. How many ships? He demanded. At least 50, Your Majesty. They are not attacking, but they are moving toward the capital. Taehyun looked at Lieutenant Park. The rescue mission, she said. They must have tracked my ship. Emperor Dohyun glared at Taehyun. Is this your doing? A trick to bring your fleet here? No, Taehyun said honestly. But this could be an opportunity. Let me speak to them. We can turn this into a peace meeting, not a battle. Princess Juwoo stepped forward. Father, please. This is what I've been trying to tell you. We can end this war today, peacefully. Emperor Dohyun looked at his daughter, then at Taehyun. After a long moment he nodded. Take the human to the communication center. Let him speak to his people. At the palace communication center, Taehyun made contact with the human fleet. On the large screen appeared the face of Admiral Tenjin, commander of the Terran Defense Force. Sergeant Kim, the admiral said in surprise. You're alive? Yes, sir, Taehyun replied. And I'm here with Emperor Dohyun of the Kailosian Empire. We want to discuss peace. Admiral Tenjin looked skeptical. Peace, after 5 years of war. Sir, I've learned that much of what we believed about the Kailosians was wrong, and they believed wrong things about us. This war started because of misunderstandings and lies. Princess Juwu stepped forward. Admiral, I am Princess Juwu. My father and I invite you to land and begin peace talks. As a show of our good faith, we will share the truth about how this war began, from both sides. Admiral Henjin thought for a moment, then nodded. I will come with a small team, but our fleet stays in position. As they ended the communication, Princess Juwu turned to Taehyun. This is really happening, she said. After all these years of war, we might finally have peace. Taehyun smiled, and it all started because a princess decided to talk to her prisoner. Princess Juwu took his hand, and because a human soldier showed us what humanity is truly worth. In the days that followed, human and Kailosian leaders met to discuss peace. Elder Sumin shared ancient records that showed the first contact between their species had been peaceful, but had been sabotaged by those who wanted war on both sides. A peace treaty was signed. The war was over. And in a ceremony that combined both human and Kailosian traditions, Princess Juwu and Sergeant Taehyun Kim were married. Their union became a symbol of the new alliance between their peoples. Together, they established the first human Kailosian cultural center, where both species could learn about each other. And the ancient prophecy, long forgotten by most Kailosians, was fulfilled at last. Two species, once enemies, now work together toward a peaceful future for all.